We're on part 2 of the study guide for the first quarter exam. So question 7 asked you, what was the main cause of the French and Indian War? And then what are the results of the Treaty of Paris? Okay, so both England and France, they're claiming this Ohio region. So they're claiming this area up here. And the reason why they want to claim that area is because of the lakes. And so the English settlers are a little apprehensive because they are fearful that the Catholic Pope, because the French are Catholic, and the French are going to be interfering in their area. You're talking close to this New England and Middle Colony area, and so remember, a lot of them come over here for religious freedom for their group and their group only. So this land area is really the reason why the British colonists, because they're British, and the French and the Indians are actually going to go to war. So as the war goes on, and it's going on over there in Europe, because the colonies always get pulled into the mother country's business. So England and France are fighting, and they call it the 7-Year War overseas in Europe. Here in the colonies, they're going to call it the French and Indian War. So remember back in Era 1 and the beginning of this era, we talked about how the American Indians and the French settlers are actually pretty friendly. The French, I called them the friendly French. They made alliances with the American Indians, and so when the war breaks out overseas between Britain and France, or England and France, what's going to happen is their colonies have to get involved. So the colony of Quebec, the colony of Canada, that's French controlled, they're going to get in, and they're going to go to their American Indian friends, and they're going to go ahead and have them help them, and they fight this war against England. And so the American colonists are the settlers here. They also now have to fight. And so they're going to fight with the British, they're going to fight with their fellow countrymen, and they're going to be fighting over this land. England wins. Okay, so the results of the Treaty of Paris is 1763. France lost Canada, India, and the land east of the Mississippi River. It's like the Mississippi River here, so they lose all this land. They lose Canada, and they actually lose India, so they lose a lot. They lose east of us. Okay, Spain got France. They beat France, so they get the French land west of the Mississippi, so they get this land. They get New Orleans. But they lose Florida to England. Okay, so now it's not Spanish Florida, now it's going to be English Florida. Now that's going to change later, so don't get focused on that. And then England gets all the French land in Canada. That's theirs now. They get exclusive slave trade as well in the Caribbeans, which down here, and they get India. So England comes out the big winner as this French and Indian War comes to a close. So in this Treaty of Paris of 1763, England is the dominant power now here in North America. Question 8 was asking about those explorers. So Diaz, remember, he's Portuguese. He's going to do the route to the Indian Ocean. Da Gama is another Portuguese, and he's going to get to India and establish trade. Champlain is a French explorer. He founded Quebec, and Hudson is actually going to be selling for the Dutch, or the Netherlands, and he is going to found the Hudson River Valley, and, of course, he names it after himself. Okay. Question 9, we're looking at the treatment of the American Indians by the different groups of settlers, and then we give examples and some details here. So the French and the Dutch, I say the friendly French, the decent Dutch. They made trading alliances with the American Indians, and in general, they actually have a pretty good relationship with them. The English, I say the evil English, or you can say the brutal British, but in the beginning, with John Smith and the Powhatan Indians, he tries to be very good, and everything's great until it's not. And then the English settlers start cheating the American Indians in trade deals, and they start bullying, and they typically are very hostile to them. And this leads to King Philip's War, or Metacom's War. The Spanish are the spiteful Spanish. They're not nice at all. We call them conquistadors. They kill the American Indians either with, their weapons or really with the germs, the diseases that they bring over. and whoever's left gets enslaved and forced to work in coming in the system, so they're forced to work on the plantations and in the silver mines. So what was the main source of conflict between settlers and the American Indians? It's over land. And the settlers wanted more land, and they don't really want to pay for it, and they don't respect the American Indians' culture and claim to it. The American Indians don't believe in owning land. You know, how can you own the sun? How can you own the moon? How can you own the land? So they don't believe in that. But the English and really Europeans believed that you could own the land. You had a land deed. You had a piece of paper that said you own this land. And so it kind of, the American Indians don't get it. And so this conflict over land is really what's going to lead to King Philip's War, or Metacom's War. It's going to lead to just about every conflict. And this is a continuing trend. As we get further into the course, you're going to see this when the United States is created, when we look at the Indian Removal Act, the Trail of Tears, all that stuff that goes on in the West with the Plains Wars. All of it is really over land and not understanding whose land it is. Sorry for the interruption. All right, we're on question 10. Haven for the Quakers and haven for the Catholics. Haven just means safe place, where you could go and you wouldn't get harassed. And so that haven, that safe place for the Quakers, is going to be the colony of Pennsylvania. So William Penn is going to come over here, and he's going to establish the colony of Pennsylvania. And remember, the Quakers, they're the brotherhood of man. And so they don't believe anyone is their stranger. They're all brothers. They're all sisters. They don't believe in slavery. They treat everybody as equals. And so they make a lot of deals, alliances, and they trade fairly with the American Indians. And here's a good proof of it. So they do try and convert them to the Quaker belief, but it works. It doesn't work sometimes. But later in the course, we're going to look at the Quakers again when we look at the Underground Railroad. They're going to be one of the big supporters and helpers along that route to help escaped slaves from the South get to the North. So if you could get to Pennsylvania, you were probably going to be taken in by a Quaker and hidden until they could get you to Ohio, like Cleveland, Ohio, to get you out there on lake, out on the lake, and get you up there to Canada. So really, when you look at the Quakers, they're going to be something we check back on later in the course. The haven for the Catholics is Maryland. And so remember Lord Baltimore, he creates this colony. And in the colony, he's going to have the Toleration Act. He will tolerate Christians who are Catholic, but he will also tolerate Protestants. Only Christians, no one else. Okay, so Maryland's going to be a southern colony, and Pennsylvania is a middle colony. Question 11 asks you to give 3 examples of work performed by an artisan. An artisan is a skilled craftsman. So here are 3 good examples. A blacksmith. Here's actually a picture of a blacksmith. You have to forge things with fire. The History Channel has a show like Forged in Fire, where they're going to make like weapons, like swords and stuff. But they make other things other than weapons. They make pots, pans, anything that's metal. A blacksmith is going to make it. A printer, like Benjamin Franklin. They printed materials like newspapers, ads. That's a artisan. And then anyone who makes clothes, so clothing makers, we call it the textiles. That is an artisan. They are taking something and they're refining it, and it's an art form. Question 12 asks you to define economic interdependence and to describe how this impacted the 3 geographic regions of colonial America. So what economic interdependence is, it means that 2 places need each other in order to survive. Think about it like your family. You're economically intertwined. You're together. Like you need mom and dad to help you out. You need grandma and grandpa to help you out. So you're economically interdependent. When you look at the colonies, each of the colonies needs the other colonies to help out. When the South grows their tobacco, they don't actually ship it. They just grow it. So they need a middle or a New England colony to help them out with that. So they get it to the middle or to the New England colony through one of their boats, through one of the middle or New England boats, and then they're going to go ahead and ship that cotton or that tobacco, rice, indigo, whatever it is, to England, and that is actually a good way of looking at economic interdependence. So each region needs the other in order to survive. New England needed crops. They didn't grow any crops. Remember, the soil is real rocky. So they need food sources, and they get that from the middle and the southern colony. The middle colony needs crops too that only the southern colonies grow. And they needed the New England colonies to help them sell their excess wheat because they're the breadbasket, and their corn internationally. So they're going to help them sell it to England. The southern needed the New England colonies to sell their excess crops, but they needed the middle for grain. So they all need each other. They all are making up a piece of this like 13 original colonies puzzle for success, okay? So this is a good form of economic interdependence. You need the other person for your economy to keep going. So I gave you the example of Fort Bragg here in Fayetteville. If Fort Bragg is not here, Fayetteville's economy is not going to continue. Like, it's going to crash. Okay, we need Fort Bragg, and Fort Bragg needs us. We do the support stuff. The people who aren't related, who aren't in the military, are in some way, some form or fashion, have a job that's most likely related to military and their family. It's economic interdependence. Question 13 is about farm life and describing the gender role of division. We did this with the little pilgrims in the interactive notebook. So males do most of the outdoor work. Now women have to help too. You know, a woman's work is never done. And this is true in colonial America, and it's going to be true in America for a really long time. Because even when we go out west in the 1850s and 60s, they're still going to be doing the same stuff. Women helped outside, but their main responsibility is tending to the household and the children. So when you look at men and you look at the role of women, there is a division, but women are definitely going to have to help outside if the farm life requires it. When we look at mercantilism, we got to define it. We got to look at what led to it. So mercantilism is just an economic theory in which the mother country sells or exports more goods than it's going to import and buy. The whole reason why you have these 13 original colonies right here is because this little island right here, England, needs raw material. They can't grow everything, okay? And they're going to start having factories soon. So they need raw materials to feed their factories so they can refine it. And then once they get that refined good, something that you and I would want, they're going to sell it back here to the colonies. They never are going to sell it at cost. They're always going to sell it to make profit. So they buy the raw materials for cheap, like cotton, tobacco. They take that cotton, that tobacco, back here to Europe, to England. They're going to take that cotton, they're going to make a shirt from it, and they're going to sell it back to the colonies at a higher price. In this case, you always want to sell more than you buy. That's how mercantilism works. And it led to England using the American colonies as basically the source for their raw materials so that they could process it and sell it back to them. And this is that triangular trade that we talked about. And the triangular trade is because it's connecting 3 continents with trade. So you see from the colonies, you have sugar, tobacco, cotton. It goes to Europe. From Europe, you're going to have things that they made, clothing, textiles. That's what they made from cotton. Rum, they make that with the sugar part. And they're going to have manufactured goods sent to Africa. So this is on the boat. Now, while they're in Africa, they're going to trade those goods for slaves. They're going to pick up the slaves, and here is the Middle Passage. And they're going to go to the Caribbeans first, and then they're going to come to the Americas. Okay, and it's because by the time they got to the Caribbeans, they're severely unhealthy. You know, they haven't eaten solid food. They're underweight now. There's a lot of sickness. So by the time the ones who are actually alive get here, they don't look healthy. And so they're not going to sell for top dollar here. You're talking about human beings that they're going to do this to on a market, okay? So when they get here to the Caribbeans, they're suddenly going to feed them. And they're going to make sure that they look healthy so that when they get them here to the colonies, to the southern colonies, they will look like they are healthy and that they will have a long life so that the southern plantation owners can buy them at the slave markets. And that is part of this mercantilism, okay?